Welcome to another Unreal Foos tutorial. I've been asked by several people to do more tutorials on shooting out of the back. So I have a video on shooting a pull series. So this next one is shooting a push series. The push series for me is one of my favorite ones, and I usually use this a lot during singles, and I can score a lot with it. So let me just show you some of the progressions that I go through when shooting this, and what I look at, and how to execute certain shots. The first one is you got to be able to execute sprays, which are the easier ones to execute, but you got to be able to spray, to spray to the short, a little bit middle, and even to be able to spray long. So first one is, even with the pull shot or the push, for me, you always have to be right next to the ball. So what I do is I come over here and I set up, and depending on where I want to shoot, so if I'm here, I get real close to the wall, and I see that, if somebody's leaving me a short, the very first progression that I do, like if somebody's maybe trying to do this defense and they're bailing out, is just to do that. So you're not even shooting the push, you're just spraying the ball, and you got to practice. Like for example, if somebody sets, if this guy's not up against the wall, typically when you brush this, you're gonna hit this second guy. So that means that if you see somebody floating, and this guy's not in front of the ball, you know that hole's gonna be open, that short's gonna be open, right here, like that. And try to practice so that you don't spray it. You should be able to hit that short right there, like that. That should be the first. Anytime that you see that, anytime you see the 5R sort of floating away from that. Now, if you see somebody either away from that or just baiting, as soon as they feel you go to the shot and they move and they block that, then you got to start thinking, okay, then I gotta start, actually pushing the ball. So the next one is splitting these two guys right here. So if these two guys are like this, if this guy either wants to come out really far to get that spray with this, now you have a split right here. So then you gotta be able to split those two guys. So practice doing this shot right there. So you're basically just trying to get around this first guy on the defender's 3-bar, so that you don't hit that exactly right there, like that. The next one, so that's still a little bit of a spray. The next shot that's kind of more difficult. And then once people start sort of giving you a tighter defense here, where they're not letting you either spray the ball just by slicing the ball down like this, or going to that short, then now you're gonna have a little bit more of a spray. And then it all depends. If this guy is past the middle, if somebody gives you a defense like this, where this guy is past the middle, then you're going to have a big spray. And you can see that spray right here. So then, you always got to just practice spraying and splitting the two defenders. So go and set up and split those two guys right there. So you gotta practice that spray, like that. The other one, it's another spray. Sometimes what I do is when people start playing a little bit tighter like this, if this guy is sort of right here by the middle, and this guy wants to take away the split right here, this is gonna give you a longer split. It's not a very easy shot. But you gotta if you look at the angle, you gotta go all the way long. So you gotta practice splitting or spraying all the way long, and that shot it's actually kind of difficult, but like practice it and see if you can get it. The other option for that is if you can't do that shot, then you when you're here, you might want to try to do a push kick. That's the other option if you're able to do it quickly, or if you can get away with doing a push back, that's fine. But you can do push kicks like that. But I prefer doing the spray because in terms of consistency, for me, it's a lot easier to spray than do the push kick. Even though it will be there, and if they're not fast enough, if they're too worried about you shooting or splitting, then you can hit those push kicks. But the other shot that I typically like to do, especially if somebody's like this and they're being greedy here, you know, is you have a nice square shot right here. And so you got to be able to go and square the shot right here. So it's a square push. Like basically you're going and squaring the shot at that spot. So, you know, you got to practice. You got to practice doing that. So you got to be able to move and then come back and square it. So it's like this. So if I see that hole like that, you know, sometimes you'll square it a little too much, but it's if somebody gives you that, it'll and most people usually do because it's not a very easy shot to do, but and that's a beautiful shot that you can typically use to break, you know, different zones. And then as soon as somebody is worried about that, then, you know, again, you're gonna have the split, or you're gonna have, depending on the adjustment of this guy, you're gonna have, you know, you're gonna have that. Sometimes what I do when I see that hole open too is I'll do a fake, and then I'll do that. You know, I'll just mix it up of this push series, because you see that hole's open. You don't necessarily have to go to that. You can still fake, you know, come back and then hit it where you want to go. But in terms of the push series, then, you know, again, keep practicing, like hitting long. Well, if you can do that, then you're gonna beat everybody. But, you know, trying to go to those spray longs, especially, so you can, you know, you can put the guys up and then just challenge yourself, saying, well, you know, I'm gonna try to and leave this guy around there and say, okay, let me see if I can get around this middle guy, you know. And usually it's if he's guarding that. And sometimes when you play a zone too, you know, if somebody's doing a push shot, you might want to give that long push spray because it's hard to do. So anyways, send me any questions or comments. Thank you.